May I have your attention? May I please have your attention? Super Sundays. Yeah, baby. We're back at it again. Let's get it.
Let's get it. Let's get it.
Let's get it. What's up, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Sir Hill Speaks Super Sundays. I'm glad that you're here. I wanted to take a moment to tell you guys how much I appreciate you. We've been doing these shows for months now, and you guys have been showing up consistently as we take on and we tackle different challenges and different topics. So I appreciate it. But here's what we're trying to do going forward. We want to grow this audience to people who need to hear content like this. And so we need your help. How can you help us? That's a fantastic question. Be sure to make sure you hit that like button. Be sure to subscribe and make sure you hit that notification bell for all of the content that we have, particularly Super Sundays. All right, guys, sit back, relax, enjoy. Make sure you invite somebody to Sir Hill Speaks Super Sundays. We're getting ready to go in. We're going to have a good time. Happy Sunday, everybody. Let's get to the show.
Me go beast on them. I go beast, go deep, I OG on them. I apply pressure, put heat on them. Put that 500 degrees on them. 500 degrees, go dummy, go beast on them. I go beast, go deep, I OG on them. I apply pressure, put heat on them. Put that 500 degrees on them. Down, levitate, going up, elevate. Watch me demonstrate. On time, never late. I grind, celebrate. No pump, fake, hesitate. I've been scoring every day. Champagne, Perrier. Since 9-3, been in the box, now stepping up to home. Like straight out the sandlot, now I'm plotting on the globe. I work hard, I show love, that karma steady growing. Got this far, I go hard, let God take control. I was starving skinny, now my weight up, got no energy for haters. See you trying, see you later. I'm shooting for the stars, need no laser beam, blowing like the greatest, but it's one who's always greater. Yo, go dummy, go beast on them. I go beast, go deep, I OG on them. I apply pressure, put heat on them. Put that 500 degrees on them. 500 degrees, go dummy, go beast on them. I go beast, go deep, I OG on them. I apply pressure, put heat on them. Put that 500 degrees on them. My good skin clear, this here my year. Hey, look up here, this here my tier. Same fit 4 days, I grind 4 ways. I play no games, all me, no blame. On the wave, my own wave, can't stop my shine. In the lane, my own lane, can't stop my grind. 40 yard in the V12, like 1.5. At 19, I cleared 19 in a month, no lie. Oh God. I was starving skinny, now my weight up, got no energy for haters. See you trying, see you later. I'm shooting for the stars, need no laser beam, blowing like the greatest, but it's one who's always greater. Yo, go dummy, go beast on them. I go beast, go deep, I OG on them. I apply pressure, put heat on them. Put that 500 degrees on them. 500 degrees, go dummy, go beast on them. I go beast, go deep, I OG on them. I apply pressure, put heat on them. Put that 500 degrees on them. 500 degrees.
Likes up, everybody. The show's getting ready to start.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another edition of Lost in Translation podcast. This is a Super Sunday. Once again, we're back. I'm so glad you guys got a chance to join us. It's been a while, y'all.
Easy on the beat.
It's been a while. Tonight, we're going to have us a good old-fashioned conversation about marriage. And more importantly, what does it take to be a husband? I have a few people who I'm going to invite up to the table, but tonight, it's going to be me and the one and only R. Payne. We're going to be talking tonight. We also have Mr. Bennett in the back. I see him coming in. Glad to see you, sir. And what I want to do is I wanted to have a conversation with some gentlemen who've been married for a while. Somebody who could lace our tennis shoes, if you so to speak. You know what I mean? Give us some wisdom on why we should get married and why it's good for a man to be married. Also, we have a few other guests that'll be coming in shortly, but tonight we're going to have us a good old-fashioned conversation on what does it take to be a husband. So I want to go ahead and thank a few people in chat. The Seds, I know they're in the building. Lady Navoa, I know Mr. Bennett is in the house, and a few other people. I want to thank you guys for coming out. But in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and bring our guest to the stage. The first person I want to bring to the stage is Mr. R. Payne. He has a show called Marriage, Politics, and Sports. Thank you so much for coming to the show, Mr. R. Payne. Good to see you, sir. How are you today?
Very good, very good.
Good. Now, the next person I want to bring up, he's the Brotherhood, the president of the Brotherhood, the Ball Brotherhood. Yes, indeed. The one and only Mr. Paul Bennett. Mr. Paul Bennett, how are you today, sir?
I'm doing well. Good to see you brothers tonight. Looking good.
Good to see you. Good to see you.
Yeah.
Good to see you. Listen, tonight, I want to talk to you guys a little bit about what it takes to be a husband. And I wanted to have a little bit of a mature conversation with you gentlemen, because I think it's probably high time that we did that. And to make sure that we look at this thing from a point of view, from a wisdom point of view, and what does it take? A lot of times we like to focus on the beginning of the marriage, but sometimes we need to talk from a perspective a little bit further down marriage. You know what I'm saying? And have some discussions about what's really going on. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get started. First, I want to find out how you guys are doing today. I'm going to start with R. Payne. R. Payne, how was your day today, sir?
Man, it was great, man. You know, it's funny. My whole family came down with COVID over the holidays.
Wow. Is everybody okay
my
now?
daughter, my wife, myself, you know, everybody's tested negative now. And
Okay.
I had dodged that son from the 20. This is my first case of it.
Wow.
Since 2020, it's been missing. And they finally caught up with me, but you know, it just felt like the flu to me, you know, knock on wood. And
Right.
So we're all good. You know, my daughter's young, resilient. My wife, it hit her a little harder, and that had me a little worried, but she's fine now, you know. So
Well, that's good. I'm glad to hear everybody's doing good, man. I'm glad you're feeling better, man. And the next person I want to bring to the stage, Mr. Bennett. Mr. Bennett, how are you today, sir? How was your weekend?
Weekend was pretty good. Actually, we had a little bug that came through our house as well, but it wasn't COVID related. But my wife caught the flu, and I caught a little something. So, but no fever, no body aches, and I tested negative. So everyone's good here. But yeah, something's been going around. You know, quite a few people who've been sick. We got our first dash of snow and rain over the weekend, so I'm out there doing that shoveling stuff. But I was fortunate I was healthy enough to do that because I didn't think with the symptoms that I had that I should be out there. But everything worked out. But all in that, everything's good. My Steelers got into the playoffs, so I'm feeling
Man, congratulations, man.
So I got another week to enjoy the season. So everything's
Indeed. You know, I think that's probably what's been slowing us down. We've been enjoying too much football, man. We need to be out here working. So that's also why I'm glad I went on and got this on out the way. I'm not going to keep you guys long, but I just wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about being a husband, and just to give you guys a background on what made me bring this up. I remember a while back, my granddad sat me and my brothers down. This was shortly after my father passed away. And I think my granddad kind of knew that it was time for us to have the marriage conversation early with us. You know what I'm saying? We were probably around, I was probably about 18. My other brother was like 16 and 14 and kind of young. You know what I'm saying? So he sat us down. He was like, well, why do you guys think you should be married? Of course, you know, I'm thinking I know everything because I'm in love. He was like, no, that ain't it. He said, the reason why you get married is to have somebody that had the tough times to go through. And to me, that resonated with me, man. To me, it really didn't hit until I got older. And I started seeing exactly what that meant. Just to give you guys a heads up, my neighbor, I used to talk to my neighbor all the time. Gentleman that used to live next door, gentleman by the name of Robert. And Robert, man, he's a little older gentleman. Robert was about 68 years old. He's a little bit older than me. Mm-hmm. And, he gets out, does yard work, and take care of his wife, that type of thing. Just salt of the earth type of guy. We sit down and we talk about life, and just regular stuff. Well, come to find out, a few days ago, Robert's wife, told me, hey, she said, your buddy in the hospital. I said, no, I didn't know that. She said he'd been in the hospital for 2 weeks. I said, I noticed I ain't been seeing him lately. Normally he'll come out there and take the trash out or whatever, we chop it up or whatever. But for some reason, a few days ago, I started seeing a whole bunch of cars at Robert's house. And I ain't see Robert no more, man. So that leads me to believe Robert is gone, bro. You know what I'm saying? Robert is checked up out of here. And I don't think we really have the conversations that we really need to have about marriage when it comes to stuff like that. You know, at the beginning, everybody wants to talk about the weddings and the engagements and picking out the flowers and the kids and all this other stuff. But what happens towards the end? You know what I'm saying? The middle part. How do you guys prepare for stuff like that? But the thing about it is, I've noticed too. I don't know if you guys have noticed that there are a situation where a lot of men are not getting married. Man, let's say about 54% guys are single with no kids,
Right.
and probably ain't been married. So this is a conversation I wanted to talk to you guys about it, and why gentlemen should want to be married. I'm going to start the conversation out with you, Mr. Bennett. Mr. Bennett, give me a reason why you think young men should get married. What are some of the benefits of being married younger?
Well, I think just from my vantage point, it's hard to describe being married in a present sense. I think that the fact that so many people want it now, like we're a now generation, we want instant satisfaction, instant
Right.
gratification. We want the results right away. It's really hard to describe or to paint a picture for a younger man what the benefits are when a lot of those benefits come later.
Correct.
It's the maturation process that you go through as a man. A lot of guys go around thinking, well, I'm already grown, I'm already an adult, what are you talking about that I need to transform?
Right.
But I think it's the transformative process that you go through in marriage. Certainly it was for me, because again, I got married for essentially carnal reasons.
Right.
So I don't know if I had everything figured out yet. And I certainly didn't have the models like you had in my family. Again, my parents were basically separate. They never divorced. But back in the emojis, they never divorced. You could be separated. You live in a totally separate life, but you never divorced. That was just
Right.
something they just didn't do. So I didn't have a lot of models to draw from for being married. And like I said, I went into it with somewhat of a short-term mentality. But as the longer I've been married, the longer I've seen the benefits. To me, it's almost like taking a vitamin. You're not going to feel the sense of taking that vitamin or just eating a healthy diet. It may not resonate like right away with you, but you
Right.
notice as you run the race over time, you see the benefits rather than just eating fast food and junk food all the time. Yeah, it gives you that high, but in the long term, it's bad for you. So I would describe why for a young man to be married is probably similar to how I would say why a young man should get in shape. Because
Right.
when you get in shape, it's easy to stay in shape, especially when you get older. But for a 50-year-old man to say, okay, well, now I'm gonna get myself in shape is very hard to kind of get started. But if you get that pattern and consistency going young, it'll pay dividends later. But to try to explain that to a person whose frame of reference is maybe 2 years is considered long-term planning. It can be
Right.
very difficult for those guys to grasp. But I would still praise it and explain it in those terms, and hopefully those who get the message will get it.
Right. Mr. Bennett, I understood you said that you may not have it all together as a young man. I think a lot of guys think that they have to get it
Mhm.
all together in the beginning
Yes.
to get married. Is that true? Is that true?
No, I find, and it's not just the men, it's the women also these days
Right.
who think they have to get to a certain status. I have to get my career to a certain place or get my education or get, so everyone looks at marriage just like it's a photo, but it's not a photo, it's a video. It's a
Right.
motion picture. It's constantly moving. And I was just having a conversation with my daughters. My oldest just turned 24, took her out for a birthday with the other daughters a couple days ago. And we were talking about marriage. And one of the just observations from my experience, just talking to people who have been married a long time, the longest marriages I know were the cheapest. You know what I
Right.
mean? I mean, they got married either at City Hall for $100 or they had the wedding in the backyard. The mom fried up some chicken. In fact, we were blessed to go to a good friends of ours from church. Just celebrated their 40th. They
Right.
got married at her mama's house. Had the cake, everything in the backyard. I mean, there was no fancy everything, but everyone thinks, well, I got to have all these things. I got to make money so I can have this 6-figure wedding.
Right.
And but I don't see the receipts from that. That the cost of your wedding guarantees the length of your marriage.
Right.
But for those who started at the bottom, seem to have a longevity to them that I don't see with people who have this mindset to say, oh, well, I got to have everything fixed and set right away before I get married. Because again, most people don't even get into their financial stride until into your 30s at least.
Right.
So if you're going to delay that onset, then again, you're going to lose some of the benefits again, starting later. Again, it's just like the guy who's working out. You know, if you start out working out young and maintain that over time, it gives longevity to things. But so many people are starting late now, 30, 35. People are getting married now. And I think there's certainly something being lost with that.
Right. You're absolutely right. Arpain, I got a question for you, man.
Yes, sir.
Today's marriages are built different. You know what I mean? There's always a question that I've seen that people like to harp over money. You know what I mean? And who does what. And my thing is this: what was different about the times that you came up in when it came to stuff like money? Because I hear SB always talk about the one pot thing, and I've always thought that transparency allowed the marriage to flourish if everybody knew what was on the table. In your particular situation, how did you discuss that with your wife as far as finances are concerned? Or how would you also give younger people advice on how to handle a situation like that?
Well, you know, that whole thing about one pot, right? If your finances in general, that's a conversation you have to have before you get married.
Right.
I mean, it just has to happen. And, you know, as part of your vetting process as a man, you know, and if your woman is reluctant to tell you how much money she has or how she's going to share in the burdens of life or even the pleasures of life, and when it comes to finances, then you should eliminate her from your list. See, one thing wrong with men is that when we get enamored with a woman and we consider we fall in love and all that, we miss a lot of red flags. She could be wearing a dress with a big red flag on it, and we'll ignore it because we want that woman. It's both a blessing and a curse in men. And the reason why I say it that way is because when you find the right one who's willing to be yours for life, and you have that feeling for her, then she's got a man who's never going to leave her. But if you don't have your head on right, you know, you're the man letting the vampire in the door, and you're going to pay the price for that. And you're going to be, you know, I use that analogy. People don't like it, right? Because I like vampire movies, right? And I believe men are the gatekeepers of marriage. You're accountable for who you let in. Now, responsibility for the woman, if she goes wrong or awry, she has to take responsibility for her actions. But you're accountable for who you let in. So it's like just safe in your house when a vampire comes to the door. But once you let him in or her in, you know, then it's no holds barred. You have no defenses. And that's one thing with a man. When you have the woman you think you have, you're really kind of defenseless to the woman who has you hypnotized.
Right.
And it happens. There's a lot of men out there. So I don't know if I'm straying off your thing. So when we go back to the finances, it's the same with finances. If you allow your woman to think that your money is hers and her money is hers, that's your fault. Right. And you need to have that before you need to have that right. So one pot is kind of we have one pot, right?
Right.
But in my negotiation with my wife, I didn't mind her having a little bit of money aside for her sundries, you know, keeping herself up, her nails, the things that she needed. That was part of her budget. I didn't need to have any part in that as long as she was with the program. Because one of the things I did, and this is what I tell men, no matter how much money your wife makes, unless she's a millionaire, you need to understand that everything she does financially is almost gravy. You live at the lifestyle that you could afford.
Right.
You know, that's what I did. I lived at the lifestyle I could afford. And even if my wife had extra, that was for investments, for this and that. So when she went out of the market, we didn't have to take too many steps back, or any steps back for that matter. We had a house, we could pay for the mortgage, we could pay for the kids, because I could do that on my salary. You know, and so that's how I look at it. Some women don't accept that. I mean, some women won't accept that.
Right. You know what? I'm glad you said that, because when I was little, my dad used to allow us to see how they did the finances. You know what I'm saying? Because that was something that was good for us to see. They had this little red notebook that him and my mom sat down and they pulled out the envelopes. You know what I mean? They added up everything and they was like, cross this out, cross that out. I was like, man, this seemed like that's fun. And it kind of built an appetite to share because it allows them to know exactly what was left over. Of course, you know, whatever was left over, they split up or whatever. And my mom did whatever she needed to do. Of course, like you said, she went and got her hair done, that type of thing, got clothes, you know, that type of thing. You know what I mean? And of course, you know, you got kids, you know, you got stuff you got to do for them too. But what I noticed was a lot of times when people say that married men make more money over time, I really don't think they get into the reasons why. And what happens is I think we probably need to start telling people why that happens. I come from a banking background, and one of the most powerful things in the world is compound interest. You know what I'm saying? You can compound interest with one income, and it's a fantastic thing. I promise you, it really is. But then again, when you mess around and you put two incomes together and you start compounding that, then that's when the difference starts showing up. You know what I mean? I don't think we really have that particular conversation with men and say, hey, look, it's good to have a wife. You know what I'm saying? And the thing about it is we need to start getting with younger men and say, hey, look, how are you vetting your women? You know what I mean? And I started asking guys, you know your why. That's my main question. Why do you want to get married? Why is it important to you? You see what I'm saying? Why? Because here's the thing. If you want to have kids, then you might want to find somebody who wants to stay and find somebody who wants to have kids as well, too. Somebody who's nurturing, that type of thing. Start having real conversations instead of, you know, hey, what we going to eat? You know what I mean? That type of thing. If we have kids or whatever, do you plan on homeschooling them? Or do you have private school? If you decide to private school, do you have a budget set aside? You know, that type of thing. What do you plan on taking them? Those are some real conversations that I don't think a lot of people really get into because I don't think they want to seem like they're pushy. You know what I'm saying? Right. So let me ask you a question, Mr. Bennett. You have kids, right?
Yes.
Okay. How did you have that conversation with your wife as far as planning kids? What was that like?
Well, that was from the onset. It was literally, I was in the market for a wife. You know, and being a little bit older, this is before the internet really took off and, you know, dating apps and all that kind of thing. So I was listening to a lecturer, a speaker, a motivational speaker, and he said, anything that you want, you need to write it down.
Right.
And so basically I created like a list of qualities that I wanted in a wife, and it expanded into a document. It's like a 4-page document. And I literally listed everything in there, what I was looking for, having children. But even in the document, I remember saying specifically, I wanted to be married at least 3 years before I was going to have children, because I thought it was important that we, you know, get the marriage part right before we bring kids into the world, because those are two very different things. And so that was one of the earlier conversations that we had, that, you know, we were both in alignment that we wanted children. And we had an idea of the number. We said initially, you know, 2 would be good. If we get the boy-girl split, we good with that. But we got the 2 girls, and then we tried for the third. And, you know, we hit jackpot and got 3. So, you know, that was never, you know, a question for us. But again, all those important conversations were on the outset. And if you didn't vibe with that, it was next. You know, I mean, now we have swipe left, swipe right. But it was in real time. Back then, there were a lot of dates. There was a lot of, you know, I was at that point, I was willing to go through 99 to find the one. And my wife simply was like, yeah, I can get with this. So then we, you know, proceeded with the conversation, you know, going forward from there. So we never ran into a situation where there was a change in expectations from the outside in terms of what we were both looking for and what we wanted. And we were also mature enough not to waste each other's time if that wasn't a direction that, you know, both of us didn't want to go in.
That makes sense, man. That makes sense. Let me tell you, man, when my mom was telling us that she tried for 3 girls and got 3 boys. So that made my dad happy, but our mom wasn't too thrilled about that.
Right. Now the third was the charmer right there. And that was a rough one too. So we were like, yeah, we got 3 healthy ones out. Let's stop. You know, you say if you stay long enough in the casino, this casino's gonna win at the end. So
every time
we got out with the money that we had.
Well, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. Now, Arpain, let me ask you this, man. you see what's going on in the streets, man. We got a lot of people having babies out of wedlock, man. And one of the things I've noticed is that generations pass down wisdom through their grandparents. You know what I'm saying? That type of thing. And what are some of the effects that you've seen by children not having their biological grandparents there with them to help them whenever you see these broken homes? And what are some of the suggestions that you tell men on how to handle situations like that if they find themselves in a situation like that?
Well, tell men or just tell people in general. One of the things that I do is, real quick, I keep the family tree, and I've noticed how mores and things have changed from one generation to another. One of the reasons why I got married is all my aunts and uncles, they were all married.
Right.
You know, everybody got married. My cousins, my age, we got married. That's what we did in my family when I was looking for my wife. But we had a fair amount of the young girls had kids out of wedlock, even back then in my day, right in the 80s, 90s. Right. And the thing that they had that the kids of today, women of today don't have, is they had the infrastructure of those marriages from their grandparents and their parents to support those kids. Because when those kids were born, and I could tell you, and this is no lie, not one of those kids out of wedlock went unfed, unclothed, uneducated, and unhoused. And even the girls and the guys who had kids out of wedlock, their success was delayed by a few years, but it wasn't eliminated. They're college grads now, right. Cops, you know, civil. So, but today that infrastructure is not there or is dying off, right? So that's the big difference. So there's no, you know, the trouble with the famous women who are having kids out of wedlock. They're doing so much damage to the inner city girls and all those because they don't have that infrastructure to take care of the kids they have.
Right.
They don't have that support. So those grandparents, so now the grandparents are like some millennials are grandparents now, Gen Xers, and they have a whole lot of different mindset. They ain't minding those kids the way they ain't teaching them nothing, and they ain't minding those kids like the baby boomers did. Everybody gives baby boomers a bad rap in the modern era because I think they're skewing some of the history because everybody has recency bias.
Right.
Right. The infrastructure of our community is the greatest generation, the silent generation, and some of the older baby boomers. You know, so now I don't know what's happening. I feel sorry for some of the people out of wedlock. I told my daughter, let me just make it anecdotal, right? My number one thing, and it shouldn't have been maybe, one of the most important things with my daughters was to get them to adulthood without them being baby mamas.
Right.
I wanted them to respect themselves, have some virtue. You know, I didn't say don't ever have sex because I couldn't control that. But I said, if you do, and if you know, always have a guy wrap up, not only because of pregnancy, but for the diseases that's out there. Right. And they listened to me. You know, my oldest daughter broke up with a guy and she was already in her 20s. She broke up with a guy because he got mad that I wouldn't let him go into her bedroom.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
She said, yeah. I said, why you don't break up? He said, well, he got mad at me because, you know, he thought he should be able to come into my house and, you know, stay with me in the bedroom. And she says, you know, well, my father ain't gonna have no shit like that. You know what I'm saying? And she said it's okay. She broke up with him for that.
Right.
You know, so and I said, well, she remember the face of. I used to tell my girls, remember the face of your father, and make sure it looked like a horror show when you want to do something. You know what I'm saying? So now they're on their own and they're grounded pretty nicely. And I told my daughters, you know, if you have a guy you like, don't wait to introduce me to him. Introduce him to me right away, so I can save you some time. You know, because like I saw my wife's father maybe the second or third time we got together because she was living at home. So in order for me to go see her, I had to go ring the bell.
Right. You had to get a little courage in you, didn't you?
I had to go ring the bell and, you know, pick her up. Right. And so I met them real early. even before, we got serious. That's why we were engaged in 5 months, man. That was it, man. She wasn't going nowhere. I was ready.
Good. Mr. Ben, let me ask you a question.
I don't know if I answered your question.
No, you did.
Some of the young guys don't want to. You hear how Trey treats me. He doesn't think I know shit, right? Because I'm old. He doesn't think I know anything because I'm not in the market. What he doesn't understand is I'm probably more objective than he could be in certain areas because I'm not looking to have sex with a lot of women. I got mine. So I can look at women from a more holistic viewpoint because I'm not trying to sleep with them.
Right. I think a lot of times guys get wrapped up in keeping score and putting notches and belts and not realizing that they're doing damage. You know what I mean? That somebody else is going to have to do someday. I got a book that I'm reading. I don't know if you guys have seen it before. I've always promoted it. It's from a friend of mine. It's from a gentleman by the name of A.B. Bracewell. He's a psychologist. It's called The Sexual Miseducation of Black Men in America. I don't know if you can say that or not, but it's kind of blurry. But anyway, it goes into the details on why we do the things that we do. You know what I mean? And sometimes it can short circuit some very needed things that we need. Mr. Bennett, here's my, I'll give you an example. How important do you think that having a relationship with your father-in-law and son-in-law dynamic is important? Why is that important in a relationship, in that marriage, in your daughter's marriage?
Well, I think, from my experience, one thing I realized right away, again, and this came through later education. So like I said, I didn't have good models to go from, but I was, like you're reading now, I was able to get access to some people who gave me some information. And I certainly understood, either intuitively or through that education, that marriage is not just about the individuals. Certainly in the Western world, or certainly in the United States, everything is about, the man and the woman. But go back in times past, marriages brought kingdoms together.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, you were warring empires, and part of the peace treaty is that the son and daughter of the kings or whatever married, and that was it. So marriage has always been a communal function. And I was able to certainly see that more recently with, again, as I work in the IT field, so I work with a lot of Asian Indians, and just being able to see how their culture and function works and that process. I mean, a lot of my friends, they got arranged marriages. So it wasn't just going to be like, oh, well, I like her, so I want to marry her. It's like, no, she's got to go through the process of making sure that she's going to be blended in the family. Does the mother like it? Because in that community, a lot of times the new wife actually lives with the parents of the husband.
Right.
And the mother in that household schools the new wife in terms of how to take care of her son.
Right.
And so those cues I got on with very well. And so I understood that if I was going to make an impression, I had to be intentional in terms of making an impression with the father, with the mother, who were the gatekeepers. Again, my wife, she lived at home to our pain. So I had to go to her mother's house and greet and represent myself well, if that was going to go anywhere. And likewise with my daughters now, I still have a lot of those same rules. Yeah, God's not sleeping in your room. He has to come.
Right.
He has to come and meet me. He has to shake my hand, and there's just certain things that's gonna go in certain ways. Funny story. Now, my middle daughter, she has a long-term boyfriend, and there's some possibilities there. But I remember about a year and a half ago, he was here, and nice young man. I like him a lot. And one time he called me dad, and I kind of smiled. Kind of that that kind of smile. But I said, look, I like you, but you get to call me dad when I walk my daughter down the aisle and I give her to you. Now then you can call me dad. Now again, I didn't shame him. I didn't, we had fun with it, but he kind of got the message that, hey, yeah, we cool, but until that, like Ric Flair says, you got to walk that aisle.
That's right.
And that wasn't going to happen. So I think the ability to have families, I mean, it always sounds romantic, right? Because you always hear the story of, parents didn't like each other, but they ran away and eloped and all that kind of stuff. And it sounds romantic for the pictures, but generally in societies, again, marriage is more than yourselves. So you're bringing peoples together in communities, and again, that support network that you're going to need later on when you do have kids. I mean, my wife and I, we leverage both sides of our families, the grandparents, the aunties, the uncles, we had 3 kids in 4 years. So, there were times it's like, my sister needs to come in, but my mom has to come in. Both of our mothers had to come in. So we were, we needed that. So we understood very early on that you have to keep that family dynamic as healthy as possible, unless you intend to move halfway across the country and not be impacted by that. That's to me, that's like you're playing chess instead of checkers. You're not just looking at the next move. Well, I'm just getting her. You guys, what's the long term here? How is it? And I was intentional about wanting to meet her family. I was the one who was like, yeah, I want to meet your family fairly early. So I was going to cookouts and stuff, trying to get a sense of who everybody was, because I'm doing deep intel here, not just you. Yeah, you look good and all that, but I want to know what's behind that.
Right.
And but again, that comes with being intentional, thinking about the long term. Like I said, that's hard to do with guys when you just see them hips and that shape or whatever.
Right.
And you're just thinking about the short term. That
Right.
long game has to be where what does the mom look like? Because if the mom, someone told me this, if the mom is fine,
yeah,
then more than likely when she gets older, she's gonna be fine too.
Just like a mama.
Yeah, exactly. So all of that was just in my mind, was just playing out. So yeah, the family dynamic, making sure that you get along with them, that is going to be very important if you want the long term success. Now, if you're just playing the short game, you're not going to pay attention to that. But the long term game, it's a must.
Before you go on, can I touch on what we just talked about?
Go ahead.
Yeah. With my father-in-law was I always talk to my father-in-law, right? He passed away a month after we got married. I was really sad, because I always said to myself that later on when I understood, I said, if he would have lived, I think I would be a better man than I am now. He was part of the Southern guys who migrated from the South to the North. He led his family up here. They wrote books about that.
Yep.
And he led his family up here. So he had a lot of wisdom. He had some regrets. And he told me, he shared a few with me, about from a financial standpoint, about taking chances. Because at one point, a Jewish guy came to him and said, listen, if you got 15 grand, I'm planning on buying almost every house on this block, and I don't want a partner. And 15 grand back then was a lot, but he had it. He said he had it. But he said he just couldn't take a leap. His wife might have had something to do with it. My mother-in-law might have had something to do with it, because they look at security. And when he met me, he says, one of my biggest regrets was not jumping. He said, listen, man, if you have an opportunity to do something great, no matter how scared you are, just research it, but don't be afraid to leap. Don't be afraid. I remember the conversations I had with him, man. And he was really, and he was kind of he was like maybe around 6'3", kind of stocky kind of guy. And my wife is like him, because her hair is white. His hair turned white. My wife's hair started black and is pure white now. Yeah. But it was something. So I really admired that dude. My mother-in-law was great too, but she was an old time hard chick, from the South, man. She didn't play. But so it was, and that does not take anything from my side, because I lived with all my family, so I knew what they were. But we did blend families. When my aunt was my guardian, because my mother passed away when I was young, and I'm gonna land it here. When she met my wife the very first time, I saw my aunt's face lit up, and she was like, from one of the ratchet ass chicks she used to bring to my house, you finally got it right. That kind of stuff. And she didn't have to say it. It just was all over her face. So when we blended the family, we were like an instant mesh.
Right.
So that was important what Mr. Bennett said. And, so it was one of those kind of things, man. And I just landed. I said I was going to land, but I landed. But I told her father, my father-in-law, that don't worry about your wife's not, your daughter's not coming back home. This is a lifelong promise, because he said, just bring her back in one piece. Mr. Powell, she's not coming back. It's just part of my vow, and we never ever even came close to ever breaking up, me and my wife. Never talking about it. Never had any kind of argument that ever reached to any kind of level like that. in 36 years.
That's what's up. But here's my thing, and I wanted to touch on what you said, Mr. Bennett, and what you said, Arpain. Mr. Bennett, you said that the wife oftentimes would be with the mother-in-law so she could teach her how to take care of the husband. Is that correct?
Right. In Indian culture.
In Indian culture.
In the right.
Here's
That's the
the
first
thing.
thing.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I was on vacation this week, and of course, I have to detox from social media. So I don't want to have to keep repeating the same things that I want to be able to be a fresh thing to bring to the conversation. Well, anyway, I'm glad you said that. I was watching this thing on YouTube about artisanal cheeses. You know what I'm saying? And how these people made them in different countries or whatever. But I stumbled across this one particular place that was making cheese in this small hamlet in France. And it was this couple that was there. And they were the only two people that made this particular special type of cheese. And the lady was telling me that she married into the family, and her mother-in-law taught her how to do her part in the family business. So every day the husband would get up, he would milk the cows or whatever, and the wife would go in and she would make the cheese. You know what I'm saying? And after a few hours, after they had to separate the whey from the curds and all this other stuff, then they would actually make the cheese. But I say that to say this: when you mentioned that the wives were trained to actually take care of the husband, I shudder to think that our women today being trained to take care of their particular husband and the purpose that he's actually going forward. You see what I'm saying? Right, and I don't really think a lot of women are asking men today, how is it, can I help you be a better man? You see what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Let me ask you a question. How can we get women to transition from, hey, even though I'm doing my own thing, how can I be of service to my husband? How can we transition women from that so that men could be better men?
Yeah, it's a hard question. That's almost asking, like, how do you get, it's New Year's, right? So how do I get in shape?
Right.
A lot of times it's a matter of will. It's a matter of desire. It's a matter of humility. Humility to me starts everything, every act, every positive, and admitting kind of where you are. We talk about, like an alcoholic, when you go to that first AA meeting, you introduce yourself and you say, I'm an alcoholic. You have to be real with your situation and confessing your desire to change it. It's not a source of embarrassment. It's not something that makes you less than. It actually makes you better.
Right.
But in this society, everyone's trying to cap up, and everyone's trying to have an image of, that they're whole, and they're not. So the first thing, which is probably the hardest thing, is getting a person to a point that says, okay, I'm at this place where I need help. And then once you do that, then everything just becomes about the process. And I do believe that when a person humbles themselves and actually seeks out, they will find either individuals or references or information that they need. They counsel with people. I mean, I'm in a blessed position. I had people in my life who counsel with me in terms of, what are the things I need to do? Again, I got some guys, 35, 38, 40 years old that'll reach out to me on certain things, pertaining to marriage. Right. But you gotta want that. So for the woman to say, well, can you humble yourself to say, I want to be a better wife? And sometimes it's just my sister, she's been married to her husband for about 30 plus years, but it was rocky for a long time. And it got to a point where and this was, I think, a point in her spiritual growth where she just made a decision to say, because she was very independent and very can't tell me nothing. And she was actually married before. And I saw what that relationship was like, but she came to a point in her life, she says, I want to be a wife. In fact, her exact words, I want to be a Christian wife. Now, what do I need to do in order to do that? But it was at this point in life, she was sincere about that transformation, or wanting to be transformed. And then the results and the process and all those things, a lot of that came after that. So it starts with a mindset. And unfortunately, that's something that a lot of people don't have. Just like, yeah, you can have you can go to the gym, you can sign up and register, but usually by February, you stop showing up. But have you really made the decision that this is what you want for your life, and you're willing to humble yourself to people who know what they're talking? I'm not saying going to anybody, but again, find those who have the fruit on the tree and seek their advice and counsel. But it starts with humility. You got to have that before you can really learn anything.
And that's a fantastic follow-up. I got a question for you, Arpain, just to follow up what Mr. Bennett said. A lot of times men like to lead with their wallet. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
That type of thing. And women are saying, hey, I need more than that. You know what I mean? How important is a man's relationship with God and how he follows his religion is important when he selects a wife? Because I don't think that is a conversation that we have in these spaces. But judging from what you guys have taught me, and I've listened to you guys a lot, and from what I'm hearing, I think that is the secret ingredient that I don't think we talk about enough as far as how to select a wife. Yes, she looks good or whatever, but is she good? You know what I mean? So to ask you the question, Arpain, how important is it that a man use his faith in selecting the right woman?
Well, I'm not the right guy to ask that question to, because I keep my, because I freely admit that I have one foot in both the secular and non-secular world.
Right.
I was born a Catholic. I went to Catholic school from 1st grade to 12th grade, all boys Catholic school. I used to go to church. I used to sang in the choir, Baptist church, and all that kind of stuff. I did some stuff. Right now I donate to try to buy their computers. I do all that stuff. So I have a relationship with the pastor.
Right.
But I have my own issues that we don't need to get sidetracked here.
Right.
My wife is born in, I go to the church that she was born into. She works for the church. She's there. She's part of it. And her parents were part of it. Matter of fact, the pastor who married us, he left the church 36 years ago. We were his last wedding.
Right.
And he came back, and from the new pastor, they had a big sheding. We went to that and stuff. So I don't like to claim. I don't claim any kind of big, religious thing.
Right.
I just bought a new Bible maybe around a month ago.
That's what's
that
up.
I cracked into. So me and the wife talk about different verses and stuff like that.
Right.
But I don't try to claim any kind of moral high ground. But I do understand that since my wife is really more religious than I am, from that standpoint that she's dedicated to it, and I can take or leave the physical church.
Right.
But I never stray from the belief in God, no matter what. And so I pray in my own way, and we pray together in our own way. And I still go to church, but I just don't do it every Sunday.
Right.
So I don't think about. I just we talk about certain things, and even though my wife's in the church, I find myself, from a spiritual standpoint, on certain aspects, knowing a little bit more about how the word is supposed to work than she does.
Right.
Right. Because I keep my foot grounded. I said, yeah, we have to. I believe in God, but we got to work like we live in this world.
Right.
Right. You can't just think that there's going to be a miracle coming down, and you don't have to do the work. You still have to do the work. And sometimes that gets lost in translation. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But so I'm not. Mr. Bennett probably can answer this better than me, because I don't think I stray that much from believing in God. So I sent my kids to Christian school primarily because I know what it did for me. But I still say they need to make the choices on how religious they want to be, because I can't take their free will from them. God gives me free will, so why would I take it away from them?
Right.
Right. But they've been grounded by, discipline, belief in God, and stuff like that. So I don't know, but I'm just not the best person to talk about religious stuff. I don't shy away from it,
Right.
But I can't lead that conversation because I don't want to be a hypocrite.
Right. Well, you don't have to be a hypocrite. We all works in progress. You know what I'm saying? Nobody judging.
Yeah. So I mean, I know how some people really into it, and they guide every action based on what would what would Jesus do? That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I mean,
See, I know what our painter do.
No, but but I just
That's
think
right.
that, and I'm gonna land it here. What I say is that there's stuff in the Bible that has corollary and correlation in the secular world.
Right.
Like if you believe in do unto others as if you want them to do unto you, that could be of a Christian thing, but it's just a good way to live.
Right.
Nothing new under the sun. When I was a kid, or I act like a kid. When I became a man, I act like a man. It might be in the Bible. It's just common sense stuff. So there's common stuff. So that's how I look at it. And we can go on and on, but
actually, that's an excellent. If you want to tag me in, I can take.
Go ahead,
you say you didn't know, but you teed it up. So you set this up very well. I believe, and again, a lot of folks, I'm a Christian, but a lot of folks don't necessarily agree with me fully on this. But I believe marriage is a general grace that's been given to mankind. Okay. A lot of Christians define marriage as only a Christian act, and I've never believed that. But I think marriage has been given to humanity because it is the best environment from which to grow children and to grow communities and nations and such. So it's a general grace. So you may not even be religious, but I know a lot of non-religious people who have good marriages because even though you may not be tying it to a personal relationship with God, you're doing godly things.
Right.
And just like if you read Proverbs, to our Payne's point, there are principles in Proverbs. All these, if you go to the self-help section in the bookstore, they got all these positive mental attitude books. Half the books that are written there, you can find the exact words in Proverbs.
Right.
About work ethic and how you treat people and all these things. So you have people who may not necessarily have that personal connection, but they're doing the work to be married, to respect and honor and sacrifice and discipline and all those things that are with it. So I think even for an atheist, I think, again, a lot of people won't agree with me. I think I've seen it, non-believers have good marriages because they do the things that make a marriage good. I think the benefit for someone, if you do have a personal faith, in particular a Christian faith, then we have that model in the scriptures that says, basically a husband and wife's marriage is similar to like Christ's marriage to his church and how he died and sacrificed for her. So that, there's that parallel. So if anything, we should have the additional benefit of having that as a model and an example to model after. So we should benefit. But again, if you look at the divorce rates amongst Christian people, it's still up there. It's still close to 50%. I mean, there's not a huge, discrepancy between that and the secular world.
Right.
But
it's
sometimes
about the same, to be honest.
Yeah. But sometimes there is a thing called common sense. And like we said, oftentimes say common sense is not always common. And I think a lot of people try to over spiritualize that which has been made plain to everybody. And you have people who actually benefit from doing things, as terms of people who are being successful financially or otherwise, because they're doing the things that the scriptures oftentimes recommend, and they don't even know it, but they're doing it. And the people who are supposed to know it aren't necessarily, practicing what they should be practicing. So I certainly think that having a faith level is good and beneficial. But again, if you don't put it in the practical, if you don't really do the work that is required, I don't care how much you pray and fast and tithe and all that kind of stuff, it's not going to work for you unless you do the things that you need to do to make that marriage successful.
Absolutely.
And on that one point, though, there's a book out called Sex and Culture. And this guy, I just bought it. I haven't read it. It's a thick book. He studied 86 civilizations over the last 5,000 years or something. And he found out that monogamy and marriage were the cornerstones of all of those civilizations.
That's right.
All of them.
That's right.
And once monogamy went out the window, it just took one generation for those civilizations to begin to fall apart. Yeah. And we can see what's going on here in America.
Yeah, I've noticed that. I think the real reason why that's important is because it takes a while for you to get to know the person that you're with. You know what I mean? I've seen so many relationships where people are in relationship with people, they don't even know these people. They don't even know their birthday. You know what I'm saying? They don't know what turns them on. They don't know what makes them tick. You know what I mean? They don't know anything about that person. They don't know their fears, their wants, their desires. And I think what happens is when you get into a situation where you don't even ask that person, the other person's not going to trust you. You know, it could be something as simple as how was your day today? Or is, hey, look, I noticed that you were down. Is there anything I can do for you? You know what I mean? I think that common decency is probably the secret sauce that we're missing. You know what I mean? Ask people how they doing. Do you really like the person that you're with? You know what I mean? I think I know the real reason why. I think it's because we want that person for our own selfish needs. Instead of even asking, hey, does this person even need something from me? Or do they even like me like that? You know what I'm saying? And I think a lot of times we get into selfish, we select our partners from selfish needs. Does that make sense?
Yes,
and I think that's an issue that we see today. And then they wonder why the relationship break apart, because you really didn't get the chance to know that person. And you didn't let that person know you. Everybody walks around with that mask on. You know what I'm saying? How are you today? I'm lost in translation. You know what I'm saying? And then it's like, no, that ain't the real me. I'm just trying to figure out who you are. You know, this is the real me. You know, that type of thing. And I don't think there's
you could go with that point. There's so many places you can go with that. You know, I mean, that's one of these conversations. You have to, because they could go. I mean, there's so many things that variables, but I mean, just end it there. But I don't know what your next question is, but what real quick, especially before I met my wife, the one, and I didn't realize this until I got on these panels. And I don't know if this is with every man, but for the women I've had, relationship with, I actually took something from every single one of those in terms of knowledge, because I never really fooled around with women just to be. I actually gained some knowledge from each one of them. And I don't know if that's unusual or not, but I have. And because when I think back, I said, this is what I learned from her. This is what I learned from her. I don't have 1,000 women, but I learned something from a lot of the women that I was with, because I didn't just treat them like a piece of meat. Because I had to, I'm one of those rare guys who actually had to like a girl. They say men don't have to even like them. I actually had to like the girl,
Right.
I told my wife one day, and she's not one of them, but I said, listen, one of the reasons why I'm with you is when we woke up in the morning, I didn't wake up screaming when I saw you in the morning. You look good in the morning,
That's it.
If I woke up screaming, that was a red flag. It don't matter if you were screaming.
It's another reason for the no makeup, the natural. Meet them in the natural, not in the made up. You meet them in the club, you wake up the next morning, and that's a
I don't know why I said that, but I thought it was fun.
You know what? I'm glad you said that, because here's the balance. You know what I mean? Us as husbands, you know what I mean? As husbands, there's a delicate balance between being a husband and a father. You know what I mean? There's a situation where you have to make sure that your kids get what they need from you, but your ultimate responsibility is to your wife. And I think I seen some situations where wives feel neglected because more attention was paid to the children and not to her needs. Absolutely. And it speaks to a lot of mental breakdown, body breakdown over time, that type of thing. And I think men, the word husband means to cultivate, you know what I mean? And it means that we're to always cultivate our families, and especially our wives and our kids. Mr. Bennett, how can you speak to something like that to remind men, yes, you're supposed to be a father, but in order for your kids to thrive, you have to make sure that you pour into your wife constantly as well. How can you speak to something like that to let the fellas know that's still your thing too?
Well, I think, again, I go to my faith for that. And one of the things I learned, certainly from the very beginning, is that my kids are not my own. I'm only a guardian of my kids until a certain point. And then at that point, then they become either I turn them over to God or I turn them over to the world. But my wife is supposed to be until death do us part.
Right.
So I am one only with my wife, but my kids always live apart from me. So my wife is supposed to be like a part of my body. So just as I take care of my body, I take care of my wife. But my kids, I'm hopefully, prayerfully preparing them to be one with someone else. So from the beginning, there's going to be a distinction in terms of how I approach my kids versus how I approach my wife. Right. And obviously there's going to be certain, now the balance that you're talking about is, how do you balance wants and needs?
Correct.
And that can be a juggling act sometimes. So you have the one-to-one is fairly simple, at least how we define it for us. If it's my wife's needs and my kids' needs, I choose my wife's needs. If it's my wife's wants and my children's needs, then that's oftentimes where there's a conversation.
Right.
And vice versa with that. So how do you balance that, especially when there might be disagreement over what's a need and what's a want? Does my kid need those Jordans? Or is it better served that my wife is taken care of? But I've always had a mindset to say, as long as my wife is good, the kid's gonna be fine.
Right.
And I've told guys this. I've been in different study capacities, teaching on this and whatnot. And I'll tell women straight up, your children are not the most important. It is your husband. Man. And I've gotten comments, not violent ones, but words gotten back that some women didn't like what I said.
Right.
But it's interesting that one of them actually went back home to her husband. He said, yeah, that Mr. Ben said that, you're the most important. And the husband's like, yeah, that's right.
That's right.
So, so a lot of this, I think, is what you start with. See, a lot of couples, sometimes you go through a lot of things to come to that discovery. The fortunate thing, even though, we had our rocky moments and whatnot, but I think we started out the gate with that understanding that, right, yes, we want to have children, but we understand that the children are not ours. We are caretakers of our children until they get to a certain age, and I gotta set them loose in the world. So I think that's if you go into it with that, not to say that you won't stumble. And like I said, that wants and needs discussion you may not always agree on what's most important, but more than likely, you're gonna land better with that versus getting it twisted to say, oh, it's the kids, the kids need this, the kids need to go to travel team, the kids need to go here and there. And I can honestly say the times that we did have stress in our marriage is when those details got a little blurry, but it was hard to say because we had 3 kids in 4 years. So think about it. Right. So I had a 3-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 10-month-old at one point in time. My wife is exhausted.
Of course.
And I'm feeling a certain way. Like I said, I came into marriage carnally.
Right.
And I didn't come into this as the quote unquote the perfect man or even, quite frankly, certainly not the perfect husband.
Right.
And I had to come to a state of maturity to say, rather than complaining that I don't have my wife, you're not meeting my needs at this. I need you sexually at this moment, but you're like, baby, I just had a day with these kids. I didn't have that proper understanding. So to your earlier point about oftentimes you think about spouses selfishly, and rather than asking, how can I make this easier for you? What do you need from me to make this better for you? I was acting selfishly. So again, that balancing act, you may run into it, but as long as you have those general principles in play, that'll help you get over those hurdles and hopefully land to a spot where everyone has perspective. My kids already know. I already told them probably when they were 10 or 12 years old. Yeah, it's between you and your mother. I'm picking your mother. I just told them that. It is like, wow, we're not the most important people. It's like, no, your mother is. And I just want to put that in the atmosphere so there won't be any confusion later on. And so far so good.
That's how you lay down the law. You know what I'm saying?
Can I touch on that real quick? I know
Go ahead.
Just got a new brother up here, if you want to introduce him. On that same point, I had that discussion with my wife too. The very first time she said, "These, my first priority is my kids," and it was early on. And I said, "Well, wait, let me stop you right there. These are not your kids; those are our kids." And I says, "Listen, our relationship is the most important thing that we have going on here, because if we have that together, the kids are automatically going to get taken care of."
100.
And so I said, and like what Mr. Bennett says, I said, at some point, those kids are going to leave, and it's going to be me and you, and we don't need to be strangers when that time comes.
That's right.
Right? So we're kind of empty nesters now, one of my daughters lived with us while she's banking everything. You know, she's staying here, but that's the way it is. And I understand that she understood that. And we never talked about that again. And it wasn't really an admonishment where I was angry. It was just a conversation, how we should look at our marriage,
Right.
and we really, as far as, so that's really it. That part of it that Mr. Bennett talking about, I think one of the things men miss is those opportunities to make corrections. And sometimes women miss it too. And I'm just on here. I used to curse when I talked to my wife. And it took me a while to understand that she shut down. So even if I was right on the point, if I cursed, that was her way out.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And I had to learn that when I talk to her, because she never cursed, right? When I talk to her, I have to leave all of those nice, good, your emphasis words out and just make my point, and so you learn from your spouse too. I learned, and I'm a better person because I don't have to do that to talk to her.
That's right.
So I mean, it's a give and take on those kind of things. So you got to be willing to give and take, even when you're a leader. And if we ever get to this conversation before this is over about when we had to have our kids, they're 7 years apart.
Right.
The things my wife had to do to have our 2 children, I could never repay her. Never.
Right.
The reason why we didn't go for 3 is because I had 2 girls, and of course, every man wants a son. I told her that there is no way I'm putting you through that again just because I want a boy. We're not even going to take a chance on that. And we just let time take care of the rest.
Right.
I wasn't going to do that because I don't want to stroke my ego. Forget that. Got the 2 daughters. I'm happy with that. Let's roll. Yeah.
Right. You know what? I think that we as men in these spaces really don't talk about how we support those who support us. You know what I'm saying? It's all about what do you bring to the table? You know what I mean? I think that is probably why a lot of women stay away from the table, is because they want to know what's in it for them. And I really can't say that I blame them. You know what I mean? And I think we need to get and have a better conversation about, hey, how can I help you support the things that we need to have done? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And before we get started on the next question, I want to welcome to the panel, Mr. Von Bryan. Mr. Bryan, thank you so much for coming in today, sir. We do appreciate you. You know what I mean? I've been looking forward to having you on one of these panels, and I'm so glad you could join us this evening. How are you today, sir?
Man, listen, it is a privilege and an honor to be on the platform with all of you gentlemen tonight. Happy New Year.
Likewise.
God's blessings to everyone in your families.
Thank you.
And I really appreciate the conversation tonight because, hey, listen, next month, that's 22 years for me. Next month.
Congratulations.
Now listen, has it been perfect? Has it been an easy road all 22 years? Well, let's talk about it. Let's tell the truth about that. There's been some ups and downs and all the way around. But because of the commitment that we both share, and because how we honor that covenant between both of us, it's what has given us the longevity. Sometimes I don't like her. Sometimes she doesn't like me. Sometimes we don't like each other, but we love each other. You see what I'm saying? So It is that covenant between both of us that gives us that glue, that stick-to-itiveness. You see what I'm saying? And we've learned each other throughout the years. So if we were to get up here and try to preach a sermon about how perfect marriage is, well, then we would be, not disingenuous. You see what I'm saying? We wouldn't be honest about it, but the union of marriage is a good thing, and I appreciate the fact that you're talking about marriage in relationship to the children. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
And how the spouse comes first, then the children. You see what I'm saying? And, a lot of times, even with my wife, it was such a strange thing because I would always get served a plate before the kids would. Now you would think that it would be like, no, feed the kids first, then you get a plate, but God dealt with me on that particular topic, and I understood it. You see what I'm saying? Because we're all going to eat. So nobody's going to go without food. But there is a certain, how can I say, there's a certain priority when it comes
reverence. That's what you're looking for.
That's the good word. You know, there's a certain reverence that we should have for our wives as husbands. And so thank you for welcoming to the conversation. And, you know, I'm just still trying to warm up to it.
No, you're fine. You're fine. We're just basically talking about how what it takes to be a husband. And we're having the conversation about the little nuances that we may miss from time to time. Just like we were discussing, how can we support our wives and what's in it for them? Because I think today's modern woman thinks that I hear them say it's slavery. You know what I mean? and that's what they think it is. But that when they come across a real man, you know what I mean, who's looking to be a husband and who knows that he's supposed to support his wife because the husband is the head lover in chief. You know what I'm saying? He's supposed to make sure that there's nothing that she's missing. You see what I'm saying? And how do you grow from that?
Yes,
Does that make sense, Mr. Brian? Oh
man, it makes absolute sense. You know, and I know that people don't like that term, you know, happy wife, happy life. And you know, I have absolutely no problem with that because I want her to be in the position of being happy, you see, taken care of. You see what I'm saying? Because when that occurs, guess what, gentlemen? Life does go a little bit more smooth. Would you not agree?
I agree.
Hey, can I piggyback off what you're saying there, Brother Brian?
Yes,
you know,
sir.
One of the things I tell guys, and I made a mistake about saying this on Fight Club. That was a mistake. Right? One of the things that guys, some guys don't understand that all of us have a certain amount of emotional currency, and we could waste it. I call it emotional currency, and your wives have emotional currency, and it's like a bank account. And men sometimes don't understand that we could deplete that emotional currency from our wives just by being men, you know, sometimes, not that you're malicious. I mean, we weigh on them. We want things from them. So every so often you got to make deposits in there. And I'm not talking about money, right? You do certain things and women give you grace by the things you do for them when they love you, right? They even if they don't say it, you get a chance to fill up their bank account, their emotional bank account, so you can spend it every so often, you know, and whether you look at it, I mean, it's there, whether you agree with that or not, it's there. It's just little things. It's not big things. Like for Sunday dinners, right? I cook Sunday dinner. Not all the time. It's not mandated, but it's a way for me to get my daughters and my wife at the table. Get at the table, and every time I cook something different, right? And I think about it a week in advance. And so today I came up with this, I don't even know what to call it, but it was delicious, right? Right. And so, you know, we sit down and we chop it up. You know, what's going on in your life? What's going on in your life? And of course, we start every meal with a prayer on how thankful we are. And then it means something. And my wife really appreciates that, right? Because she cooks on the regular. As the kids were growing up, of course, she makes the meals and does that. And, you know, this whole thing about serving the plate and all this, I never ask her. She always makes sure I get a plate in front of me. And it's not whether I get served first. I just need the big piece of chicken. That's right. Just give me the big piece of chicken. Right.
I want that one.
You know, but the point is, I don't really get into all that stuff. But we just kind of, she caters to me and I take care of her. And the kids kind of see that and all that stuff. And you know, so I just wanted to say that women, if you're married, you got to understand that there's not a happy wife, happy life, but you also have to make sure that she is appreciated in a way of where you're not just talking. And I'm not saying doing all kinds of crazy. Some things is just little. Like one guy, I'm gonna land it here. Sometime when the kids were young, once in a while I would say, listen, I got it, right? I got this weekend, you know, you wanted to go take care of this there. Don't worry about it. You know, the kids will be all right with me. I'll take them. Just doing that, you know, it just buys you currency.
Yes.
Small things. And a lot of guys miss that. And that's why they start to have these issues because they think they got to spend so much to do something to make their wives happy. And it's not money. It's not. You know, it's not you got to buy me Birkin and all. That's all that stuff is this new wave crap that we hear over the internet. Right. And the real relationship is more subtle than that. and it's more important than that. So that's one of the things that guys can do, because women who are with you, they naturally do a lot of stuff for you. If you got a good woman, she caters to you naturally, you know, and you got to appreciate it, other than just, you know, by saying thank you from time to time. Yeah, but how do you repay that? And it's not just a Johnson in the bedroom. It's not.
Swinging from the chandelier, you know what I'm saying? You got to have more than that. You know what? That is a great point, Mr. Payne, because I don't think we spend enough time teaching our kids to honor their wives. Even in Proverb 31, you know, it talks about the husband speaks highly of the wife in front of the kids. And I don't think people understand the power of the transference of power. You know what I'm saying? When it comes to situations like that, speaking and edifying your wife behind her back. You know what I mean? Making sure that you tell your mother thank you. You know what I mean? That type of thing. Thank you goes a long way. It really does. Mr. Bryant, let me ask you a question. How do you feel about making sure that children respect their mothers and show gratitude toward them, as far as it coming from you to make sure that they do that?
Well, yeah, definitely that's a must. I would have to say that's a definite must. And this is something that has to take place. You have to teach this child at a young age, you know, don't wait till they're teenagers to try to, you know, bring this concept to them. It has to be something that is demonstrated now. Watch it. You see, because as my son has grown up, he has seen how I revere and respect his mother. See, that's an example. I'm leading by example. You see what I'm saying? Now, when he has gotten out of line, which, you know, as they become teenagers, you know, that becomes a little bit more frequent. See what I'm saying? Right. And so you have to really pull the coattail. But if you did a good job from when they were toddlers, you see what I'm saying? You know, you don't have to pull that coattail every now and then when they become teenagers, because they feel themselves. But it's still a definite must. You know, that is my wife, and I want you to understand that. You don't disrespect her, and you don't disrespect me. We are both your parents. There's no one else out here in the street trying to take care of you. You see what I'm saying? We are not your friend. We're not your buddy. We love you, though. That's right. You see what I'm saying? So I'm a little bit traditional in that regard.
Right. Let me ask you a question. How important is tradition when it comes to raising kids in an environment like that, as far as making sure that there is structure, especially when it comes to making sure that you honor your parents? That's one of the good verses in the honor your mother and father, that your days may be long. You know what I mean? And the thing about it is, how do you teach somebody that early in life, long enough for them to see the fruits of the labor that goes into that?
Who's that for?
Mr. Bryant.
Oh.
Yeah, hold on just 1 second. I got a little bit of background noise. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
But yeah, when it comes to tradition, you know, we really have to look at, you know, what the tradition is. Right. You know, all traditions are not good. You see what I'm saying?
That's
Some
true.
people could have a tradition of, you know, the kids just running over the house and doing what they want to do. You see? So I would definitely say that some type of, and when I say traditional, it's because of you know, I'm a 60s baby. You see what I'm saying? The way that I was brought up. See, you didn't do certain things when you went in other people's house. You see, and I was always taught that, you know, when you walk inside another individual's home, you don't run around their house, you sit down. You ask for things if it's something that you want. You just don't walk in and go and automatically into the refrigerator. You know, these are certain traditional things that I was brought up. You know, you say yes, ma'am, and no, sir. You see what I'm saying? You know, and so these are very important things when it comes to respect, because, you know, a lot of us aren't teaching our children respect, and it's evident. We can see these young people, a lot of them, they have absolutely no respect. You know, so that is a major thing to me, you know, as far as raising a kid and being married and all of those things like that.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Bryant. Mr. Bennett, the same question for you. What are some of the traditions that you passed on to your children that they've seen the benefits from that you've discussed with them?
Well, I think to the earlier point, I don't think we have necessarily a traditional household, at
Okay.
least in the sense of a lot of cultural things.
Right.
We treat if there's something that's going to be traditional, again, the idea of just general respect for people and for authority. That's really one of the only things that we insist on. But if we don't have a lot of family rituals that we do, we don't have the necessarily everybody sits around the table at a certain time, and those sort of things. And one
Yeah.
thing that I think brother Brian was talking about was how how you speak to your parents and whatnot. This is something that got a little nuanced for me as my kids got older, because I
Okay.
understand that there's a relationship that they have with their mother that's different than the relationship they have with me. And so I can't, or at least I stopped trying to have the way they taught to their mom be the same way they taught to me. They have a different life. Like if I hear it, like my instinct is to say, "You talking to your mom like that?" But then my wife will come and say, "I got this is how we do it." And as long as you're still able to get the point across, and as long as you're able to get the to land the message, I'm good with that. But when it comes to me, there's certain things, there's certain language that I'll accept. There's certain things that I'll tolerate. That okay, when Dad's around, we don't do that. And so I think that little added nuance to it again. So we're not so it's not so hard. It's so rigid.
Rigid. Yes.
There's some elasticity to the relationships that they have with them with other siblings. The way my daughters talk to one another
Right.
is different, with one another. But at the core, as a human being, how do you think about the person? I think is as important as how you act around a person. 'Cause I've seen a lot of people who can be nice, but you can still see that they're not genuine. Like it's
Right.
not coming. It's almost like they're nice in a manipulative sense. They can sell you. They know the proper terms to say, but you see that there's still something underneath that's still not pure.
Yeah.
And one thing I can say about my daughters is that they are very pure when it comes to how they interact with people, and this is something that they're complimented on like all the time, whether it be in school or whether it be on their jobs. It's like, oh, can your daughters come back? We love having your daughters just because how they treat people and how they do. That to me is most important. Not the words. That's all skill. That's mechanics, and you can learn. But again, there's a difference between influence and manipulation. And
Right.
I think that and even with parents, kids are smart these days. Kids manipulate. So again, are they genuine people? So I'm always challenging my kids. Are you genuine? Even if you try to come back to me and say, well, you said one thing to the other person, then you think of something else. I'm gonna pull you aside at that point. Were you sincere about what you're saying? Why are you saying those things when you just said this to that person? What's going
Right.
on in the mindset that is not acting in pure intent? And I'm around and saying, that's the stuff that God honors. That's the stuff that God is going to judge you on. So again, I really try to teach my kids not to be double-minded, two-faced, not to be
Yeah.
like I said, that manipulative.
Right.
Always act in sincere intent, and that doesn't mean will people try to use that or manipulate that against you sometimes? Will people try to abuse that?
Right.
Yeah, you run that risk sometimes. But I'd rather you be a genuine, pure person where you can be the same person in every environment. All these spaces that we're in, all the shows that I've been on, I'm the same. But like I said, I don't have an alter ego. I'm Mr. Bennett or Paul Bennett. I'm easy to find.
Right.
I don't have a Dragon Slayer 691 or something like that. I don't have an alter ego. I'm just here. You go to my Instagram, you go to my
Right.
LinkedIn. It's the same person.
Right.
And so I really strive for my daughters to be that authentic person that you can go into any environment and not be embarrassed or be an embarrassment to us but more importantly to yourselves. So I think that's really the things that we try to hone in on But as far as traditional stuff, people can define that as they please. But defining truly what a good and genuine person is, I think, is really what we try to get across to our kids.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I want to acknowledge Sir Hell in the chat. Greetings, sir. As you can see, the saga continues, sir. Thank you so much. I hope everything is well. I just wanted to make sure we acknowledge you and say thank you and greetings for setting up such a wonderful platform and allowing us to continue the message, to make sure that we do a better job and we set the table for something different than what we've been getting. Go ahead, Mr. Brian.
No, listen, I totally agree. Mr. Bennett made a lot of very, very good points, and although I'm traditional, at the same time, I do know that times have changed as well. You see what I'm saying? And so there is a certain, if I could use that word, conformity, as to my method at times, but there are certain principles and morals that I refuse to change. I stand flat-footed on those. You see what I'm saying? But even with my son, being a father, it changes as time progresses. I've been through different stages of being a father, and because it's my first time being a dad, well, listen, each time is a new experience. See, I didn't know nothing about that. They told me about the teenagers, when they get teens, but I didn't know nothing about that prior. You see, so now I'm at a particular place where I'm trying to master that. You see what I'm saying? And move to the next phase. But traditions are very important to me. You know what I'm saying? How you regard your mother, how you regard me. How do you treat your grandmother when you're going around them? You see what I'm saying? Your grandparents. Right. Different things like that, are very important as far as the upbringing of my son. You see what I'm saying? But that traditional aspect of it, that's something that I do hold dear and tight. But then at the same time, I would definitely say that there is some conformity to what's going on now, because see, he still lives in this age. You see what I'm saying? So I have to speak to him from certain standpoints as well. You see what I mean?
Right. Absolutely right. Absolutely right. You know what? Let me ask you a question, Arpain. As far as responsibilities and roles changing in this evolving new dynamic that we have your responsibilities of a husband evolved comparison to previous generations?
That's a good question. I mean, are you specifically talking about my responsibilities with my wife in light of the new way people live?
Yeah, because we got different stuff going on these days.
Well, here's my thing, right? And I tell people this a lot. When they tell me that I'm out of touch with women of today and stuff, I said, for the 36 years I've been married to my wife, she has never stopped being a woman. She interacts, she lives in the same world as you live in. Her priorities might be different, but the influences that are out there, she's not necessarily immune to them. She might ignore them.
Right.
But they're all around her, just like they're all around me. Right. But it hasn't changed her, because she made a choice just like I made a choice. And that's the thing. A lot of people realize that the reason why we're still together is because we choose to be. There's no real magic formula that I've done other than, I think, be a good husband. And what she's done is be a good wife, is that we have to make a choice that we're going to follow the vows. And a lot of people think that's an easy thing to do, or it's easier said than done. But the truth of the matter is we all have choices to make. So she's not a big social media person, which I'm glad about. I'm certainly more than her, because I'm, on YouTube all the time. Right. But so I don't worry about that, because she's not like a big social media. So those influences are not really primal in her life. So maybe I'm blessed that way, because she's not. So she doesn't expose herself. But, I never checked her phone. I don't know who she's talking to. right? I've never, I've never checked my wife's phone. I got the password.
Amen.
She doesn't check mine either, but she
Wow.
has a password, and we have each other's passwords not because we're worried about each other. It's just if something happens to us, she can get in.
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
and so we don't, we got this kind of relationship where we don't worry about each other in that fashion, and we never have, and so maybe I've been blessed that I haven't had to deal with the standard where the world came into my marriage and started to influence it.
Right.
From where I had to really worry about that. So I might not be able to give a whole answer because for some other men, it certainly has, but I'm not the one. We're not the one. We've been blessed that way. I don't know about you, Mr. Bennett, or you, Mr. Bryant, whether you had to worry about that. I would assume that you probably didn't have to worry about that too much, Mr. Bennett, based on me knowing a little bit about you and your family.
It is very, very transparent, very open with us. And it's to a point where it's like, I want her to know information. Like this conversation is like, especially we got to talk about stuff like life insurance or, stuff that she just
to get into that too.
She just don't want to deal with that stuff. It's like, no, baby,
Yeah.
you gotta know, here's the numbers, here's the passwords, here's the codes, here's who you contact, all of that. And again, we share, I think I got a link where any password that I have, she automatically has it because it's linked up, through our accounts and everything. So yeah, I think there's a, and the only word I keep coming back to is there's a nakedness that my wife and I have.
Yeah.
Where, obviously you're comfortable being naked, physically, but there's a nakedness that's just overall where you are safe to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
Right.
Open. And it's just there's just a purity of it where it's like, yeah, she could stab me in the back tomorrow. I just don't think about it. It's there's a freedom there. There's a liberty there that allows us to just be,
It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing, man.
It is. And again, think about it. It gets better over time,
right?
Because again, like you are, Payne, I got married pretty young. From start to finish for us was 10 months. I know I was going to marry her after about 3. And, it was literally the wedding logistics. I could have went down to the courthouse and did it, but, her mom would never let us get away with that. So it was start to finish was 10 months for us, and things had to go through. But it's like, as the years go on, it's like, I don't think about anything with her, her social media, who she talks to or whatever. She gives me information that I'm like, okay, like you didn't have to tell me that, but thank you for sharing it with me. But some people may look at it being naive, but it's freedom. It's a way of living that just, you can then just focus on what the main things are. You know what I'm saying? I go to work, I do the things that I do. I could just focus on those things and not having to worry about what's going on at home or whatever. There's liberty in that, so for the people who say, well, it's bondage and all those kind of things. Nah, there's a freedom that I have that I certainly have enjoyed, and it gets better as the years go on.
And before you go, Mr. Brian, let me just say this real quick about the business thing. Me and my wife sit down every quarter and we go over, just so, because I do all that, so I have to keep refreshing her. Hey, this is where this is at. This is where, and I'm anal enough as an engineer. I have a flow chart.
There you go.
How the money comes into the house, how it gets processed, and what goes out and what goes where. And I have it set up. So this is what this looks like, a pictorial of what it looks like. And we go over that and all the numbers and all this kind of stuff every month. So we spend an hour or two every quarter not every quarter, but we try to keep it. I try to keep it once a quarter. Sometimes it bleeds into every 4 months or 5 months or something like that. But we go over that stuff. But go ahead,
Mr. Bryant, go ahead.
Yeah. Wow. Listen, you guys are really getting into the thick of it now. Because we're talking about trust now. We're talking about trust, and we're talking about faithfulness. And because of my faithfulness to my wife, you see, and that is my testimony. We're going on 22 years. I've never cheated on my wife. You see what I'm saying? Never been with another woman outside of the marriage. You see what I'm saying? Or within the marriage. We don't do that either.
That's right. That's right.
It's 2024, right?
Exactly. But because of the trust that has been built and accumulated, I'd have absolutely no problem giving her my telephone. You see what I'm saying? And this is the problem with a lot of relationships. There's no trust. There's absolutely no trust there. That's why you have to look at different papers and sneak and look in people's phones and go inside drawers and closets and try to figure out what's going on, because there's no trust there. You see what I'm saying? Right. But because of the trust that we built, hey, it's nothing for me to give her my telephone, man. You see, if yours go out, take mine. You see,
there you go.
Mine goes out.
We even got the bio.
And even if I have her phone, yeah, and even if if it were to be that way, there's no reason for me to go through her phone. She has not given me a reason to do that. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? And the minute that you lose that trust in a relationship, man, you're on a bad road. You're going down a bad path. You know, and that's something that definitely has to be established in the beginning. It's trust. But throughout the years, that trust grows and it builds. You see what I'm saying? It's kind of like a snowball effect. Yeah. You see, as you keep rolling along, it gets bigger and bigger. You know, that trust between you and your wife. So yeah, man, Mr. Bennett, that was excellent point that you brought out there, sir.
It really was that freedom. I don't think a lot of people take that into consideration, man. That it's a relief that you don't have to keep trying to expose who you are and try to figure out who somebody else is over time. Once you found your person, that's it. You don't have to keep doing that over and over again. And I'm glad you brought that up, Mr. Bennett, because that is a freedom that I don't think many people think about.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Can we go back? I know grooming, he had a question he raised about.
Yeah, let me go ahead and put grooming's question up. He says, you guys don't get jealous?
I don't. It's like someone asked me the question recently. I was at my job as we sent some ladies around the table, and they asked, "Don't you get jealous?" I was like, the best thing you can do for my ego is to look at my wife, pay a compliment to my wife. I said, "Yeah, you can look, but don't touch." Now it's interesting. Like early on, my wife used to try to make me jealous. She'd be like, "Oh yeah, I was at the gym, I was working out, and this dude tried to come up to me and try to get my numbers and all that kind of stuff." But I'm like, you only, I'm the one getting edified from that,
right?
And so again, no, we don't. I just don't. Obviously, there's certain places I tread. So we talk about that covering as a husband. Yeah, there might be some places I don't want to have my wife in because I don't want to have to put hands on somebody. You know what I'm saying?
Say that
it's
again.
Like, it's just a certain area, certain clubs or whatever. It's like, we don't need to be here, because it's just guys that just have to operate with no respect. In fact, and look, it used to be, I don't see as many of these guys as I used to, but guys look for rings.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, they were like, "Oh, you man, oh, I'm gonna get that one," and it's just not. It's just not there. There's no. So yeah, at least that's my experience. I don't know about you guys, but no, I've never been jealous of my wife or thinking. Because also when you're jealous, just point, jealousy is funny. There's this thing called jealousy and envy, and a lot of times people get those two things confused.
You're right.
And what I've always said was, envy comes from lack, but jealousy comes from possession. So in other words, when you're jealous, that means you already have something, you're afraid of losing it. Whereas envy comes from never having something that someone has something that you don't have and you want it.
Right.
So the fact that, I have what I have and I'm very secure in what I have and I don't have any doubts or fears of losing it. So no, I don't get jealous because, no one's coming for me like that. So no, it's jealousy. That's the last thing I think about.
That's right. Wow. Thou shalt not covet.
Right.
Well, as for me, I can definitely say when I was a young lad, you see what I'm saying? That, some of these prior relationships, through immaturity. Yeah, I would say I was a very jealous person because I felt that I didn't have any security in the relationship. See what I'm saying?
Right.
But what's different about me and my wife's relationship is that I have security in it. There's a liberty, like Brother Bennett was talking about. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
And I can rest assured in that liberty, of that security. So no, I really don't get jealous. You know what I'm saying? I may joke about it. Sometimes when I'm retired now, but I used to make jokes when I called home from work, and I said, "Okay, I'm on my way home. Tell the milkman he needs to leave now." You see? And we would
It's
joke
my
like
turn.
that. Yeah, exactly. Make sure the milkman ain't there. And she said, "Oh, he left an hour ago." But we would just joke with each other that way.
Right.
But the trust was definitely there, and it has always been there. And she has definitely never given me a reason to not trust her. And so that man, that you have no idea the comfort and the resting in that.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying? Because you don't have to,
that's a great
I
word.
think it was Mr. Bennett who said, hey, I can go to work and do what I have to do, and I can go over here and do this, and I don't have to worry about those things.
Right.
Yeah, man, what a blessing.
It is. Yeah. My wife was never the flirtatious type at all. She's very modest,
Right.
Some women are, like that. Even if they're, not going to do anything, they seem like if a guy comes up to them, they're like overly enamored with the attention.
Right.
My wife was never like that. If we're at a place where there's dancing and she's with me, a guy might come up, think she's alone, ask her for a dance. And it was always no, right? Because she's that's what the guy, brought you. That was it. None of this stuff. You ain't getting a little cheap feel here and there, none of that. So it was just natural. She was just like that, probably from her upbringing and stuff like that. I didn't have to, somehow convince her to be that way. She was that way already. Even when I first met her and I landed here, she might have had known some guys. Matter of fact, when I met her, she was at a party with somebody else. But after a week or so, there was no more calls where she had to go into another room or anything. They just stopped.
Right.
All that stuff just stopped. She never said, well, I got this friend, we're going to be friends for life and all this horse shit. No, none of that. It was all over, man. And it was, and she was just, I said, man, I'm not letting this chick go. I'm not, so that was the way it was, but I was ready for that, man, because I was looking for a wife.
Right.
The thing about some of these guys, I'm gonna land on this one. Some of the guys,
that devil is busy, ain't he?
Yeah,
I was just saying, he was busy.
You see,
it means that we just got to be prepared.
That means we're doing something right here.
You got to be prepared for everything, right?
Yeah, man. Jesus Christ, what a fool!
When to go back and edit that, man.
I almost didn't know what it was. I was just like, wait, hold on now.
Yeah. What a jerk, man. Anyways, hey man, so I'll land it there so we can all take a breath. We can all take a breath, man.
But listen, this is so refreshing, gentlemen, because I listen to a lot of channels now, and I listen to a lot of the younger people speak in regards to marriage, and a lot of them just ain't going for it. You see what I'm saying? They don't really have any. They don't want to put any stock in marriage. People are leaning more toward. They're leaning away from marriage than they are leaning toward it. And some of the conversations that I've heard have been very, very interesting. But I just think it's a lot of selfishness going on. You see what I'm saying, amongst the people. Because they don't want to give of themselves. See, marriages, you're giving of yourself.
That's right.
You see what I'm saying? And there's a lot of give. You see what I'm saying? There's a lot of give. There's probably more giving than it is taking,
Right.
And some people are just not willing to be in that position. And so, like I said, I get it. Marriage is not for everybody. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
And I get that. But if it's not for you, by all means, don't play with it. That's the worst thing you can do, is play with it.
Right.
Absolutely.
The problem is, Mr. Brian, is that we're coming to a point where people are actually trying to push that marriage isn't for anybody. We need to stem that. I don't know. We need to, but the tide of not being married and just being single, male and female, we have enough receipts to show us where that's going. And it ain't going into a nice spot.
Right.
None of us benefit from the fact that we're going against nature, because men and women are meant to be together.
Yeah.
Amen.
You know, and we're meant to negotiate with a person where we know that for the most part, monogamy is what keeps you together to build families and communities and nations. And all these people talk about polygamy and all that kind of stuff. How long do those relationships really last?
Right.
I mean, and
They
it's
don't.
too much too. You know, when you think about it, listen, and I always say this, you know, I'd rather give 100% of myself to one woman. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
Than 20% of myself to 5 different women.
Right.
See, I can't split it up like that. Yeah. Now, some people feel that they're good at it. Okay, well, you go right ahead. I can't do it. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah, my attention span doesn't go that far.
Right. Or Payne, just want to follow up on something you were saying about, I guess, the longevity of monogamy and how even in literature, like I'm a bit of a nerd geek when it comes to like sci-fi stuff. If you ever notice, like in a lot of science fiction, the societies of that future marriage is usually not in it.
Right.
Like a lot of times you'll have like children are born like in a test tube, like artificial. There was a movie that came out back in the day, Logan's Run. I don't know if you guys remember.
Yes,
I remember that.
And remember, the babies were basically born in like a lab or something, and they were just paired up and they were programmed and all that. So it's like, but the point of them at the end, they realized, oh, you know what, people can get together and live together for life and grow old and have families and whatnot. That was like a revelation to those people. Like, so it was like something that was taken away. So it seems like a lot of times in these societies, and there might be trends, because you talked about the societies that have came and fell. I don't know if it's just a byproduct of modernization, or as society advances technologically or intellectually, there's something about that basic human state of marriage is deemed to be less important. And there's a reason why a lot of these societies, start off good and they grow and they explode and they expand out. And then at some point they just die out because decide, you almost get too smart for our own good.
Right.
Absolutely.
But I've seen that in a lot of the science and literary works where, children are just like an option, and marriage isn't the thing that holds the society together. So we may be living in something like that.
It definitely feels like that. It really does. Before we get ready to get up out of here, I want to make sure that the last topic we should discuss is how do you guys take care of yourself in the midst of taking care of everybody else? Because it's important as husbands to understand that it is important that you're here for as long as you can. I told you at the beginning, we talked about my neighbor Robert passing away. And he was a hardworking man, but sometimes we get busy, you know what I'm saying, making sure everybody else is okay, but we rarely take the time to make sure that we're okay. We'll start with our Payne on this one.
That's a very good topic, because I was one of the guys who got out of balance. I used to play intramural basketball when I started working for years, and it kept me in shape. I went to the gym. And then I ripped my Achilles tendon, and I, even though I had to heal, that I used it as an excuse to not work out as much, and so I got really out of balance because I was traveling a lot for my job all over the United States, and so I got really out of balance. So I'm just starting to get back. Like a lot of people don't realize, since 2022 October till now, I lost pretty much like almost 100 pounds.
Oh, bless you, sir.
That's
awesome.
Yeah. So, and I'm still on that journey. I measure my weight loss and how many X's I'm just trying to get fat. I'm trying to get down to just being fat. So
yeah.
I'm serious. So, and now that I'm retired, I'm getting, I'm getting these checks every month. I said, man, I gotta make this kind of last for a long time.
That's right. You want to get your money's worth out of that thing.
That's right.
But that's not the only reason. All kinds of ailments. Almost everything that ails you can be connected to being overweight.
Right.
You know, it doesn't cure everything, but almost everything, high blood pressure, diabetes, impotency, whatever it might be, it has a corollary in how much your blood is flowing, all that. Luckily for me, I was spared, you know, kind of that one, you know, but it's true. All these things. Every time my doctor used to see me, say, "Man, you need to lose weight. You need to lose weight. You need to lose weight." So I've been, you know, and then you realize how resilient your body really is. If you start treating your body, no matter how bad you are, you start treating it well, it has like a memory. You might not get it all back, but your body is very resilient.
Right.
You know, so now I've been on this journey. It's been pretty good because I'm not on a diet, but I did change my diet.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, and when my daughter moved out, I turned her room into a gym. You know? Yeah, man, I got all
so
this.
you can come back.
Yeah. So no excuses. I just walk across the hall. You know, got a TV in there, you know, surround sound, all this stuff with treadmill, this, that, you know. So I don't have any excuse.
Right.
So now,
right.
You know, so now I'm losing it. So I got a little ways to go, but feeling much better, man.
Well, good.
Yeah,
good. We want to make sure as long as possible. Mr. Bennett, it's on you.
I was again, fitness has been a part of my life. Definitely for the past 30 years. I agree with our panel. I used to play a lot of basketball also. But when I had my first daughter, and I was also consulting at the time, I didn't get full-time benefits. So I realized that I can't be out here just playing because if I tore an Achilles or something like that out there, that I don't get paid.
Right.
So that's when the gym became, or, you know, strength training became a sort of replacement for basketball because I needed something, you know, to stay active and stay busy.
Right.
And then I learned over the years about diet, about supplements, about, you know, and just bringing all that together. And so it just became a part of my lifestyle. So for me now, I train in the mornings. Now, mind you, I'm not a morning person. I'm a night owl and I like to sleep late, but I train in the mornings in part because I want to guarantee that I have a victory that day. Like a lot of times the way the day goes is how it starts. And so for me to get up, so like Tuesdays, I get up at 6 a.m, which I'm still in my REM sleep at that time. And it's leg day on top of that. But I still do it because I guarantee that the rest of the day that I take ownership of the day. Because a lot of times when I tried to work out at nighttime after work, it's like you had a long day, it was stressful, the ride home or whatever. And a lot of times you just don't have the energy, or if you try to work out, you just don't have the same energy and effort to put into it. And so I just made the decision that if I can get down into and in my gym, I built a pretty elaborate gym in my basement. And as long as I can get downstairs, by the time the first rep, it's like a switch that goes on. And I just get it in. And the days where I feel like I'm not going to have a great workout, some of my best workouts. So I just adopted just a fit lifestyle. As I said earlier, start young and don't quit. So it doesn't matter where I'm at. My wife and I, we took a respite down in Atlantic City for a few days. And the hotel, one of the reasons I picked the hotel is because they had a really nice gym. So it doesn't matter. We went to Jamaica last year, stayed at a really nice resort, nice quality gym. And that's just what we do. My wife gets up every morning at 6 a.m., does an hour of spin every morning. And then she strength trains with me. And so, you know, the idea that, how you start and don't get off it. Because a lot of times people take breaks and then a week becomes 2 and 2 weeks becomes a month and so on. And again, it's hard to get back on it. So we're if we're anal about anything, it's about never letting that aspect of our lives slip away from us and to keep that discipline about it. So doing that, as well as, again, the diet, with my diet's lacking, I take certain supplements and whatnot, and just making sure that I'm taking care of. Because again, at the same time, I realize for lack of a better word, I'm the cash cow. And a lot of people think you take care of the weakest in society, which is good. I'm not saying that. But again, you also have to take care of the strong, because if the strong fall, then everything else falls.
Absolutely.
And so, you have to have that mindset as well that, again, even the Bible says, love your neighbor as you love yourself. And you get to a point, men and women get to a point where we're giving so much to so many people and you're burnt out And it happens in churches where if you're the only one doing all the activities and people pulling you in 20 different directions, you're going to get burnt out and you're going to quit. So again, you need that time for yourself. There's that balance. And again, that may take some wisdom and some time to kind of, make sure that you don't over prioritize one thing or another. But I'm always encouraging people at any age, mom, sometimes mom, you just need to get out. Yeah, I'll take the kids. You go and do you,
Right.
and make sure that you're whole so that we can keep this thing moving. So yeah, start early, and don't quit. And so that's how I managed to continue to take care of myself.
That's what's up. Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Mr. Bryant, it's on you, sir. How do you take care of yourself as a husband?
Wow, listen, I've been fortunate enough to be able to retire just a little bit early, and that was due to an injury that I suffered on my job.
Mm-hmm.
So I haven't worked since 2020, and injured my back and my right knee. But still, movement is very important.
Right.
Because the longer you sit around, the more stiff you're going to become. So got to keep it moving. And not only that, but then the diet too. And then one thing I've learned just in getting older is that certain things that I used to eat, I can't eat anymore. And I wish I could.
Yeah, like sugar.
like barbecue sauce. Now, barbecue sauce tears me apart. I don't know why. You see what I'm saying? But thank God I have a wife that cooks healthy meals. And that helps me a lot because I don't do any cooking. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But she helps me in that regard as far as the diet is concerned. So this part of the conversation is very encouraging to me because it listening to you all helps me want to move even more. You see what I'm saying? Because I still got a lot of life to live now.
That's right.
You know
That's
what
right.
I'm saying?
Yeah.
And but yeah, so that's my situation.
Well, that's good. You know what? It's really been a joy speaking with you gentlemen tonight. And I want to thank you for participating and sharing a little bit of your wisdom. And I think this is a conversation that we really needed to have. And I think I got the guys that really, really brought it on home. You know what I mean? Before we go, I want to make sure that everybody gets an opportunity to know where they can find you. If they need to reach out to you, if you have a show, Arpain, go ahead and tell everybody how the people can find you, sir.
Well, yeah, I have my channel, Marriage, Politics, and Sports. And I just do a lot of videos. On Wednesday, I have a sports show at 6:00. People could chime in there, and I I'm trying to perfect my format. So, and it's like I try to keep it to an hour because I do like to go over to BMU Sports Show, which is I think starts from maybe around 7:30 Eastern or maybe a little later.
Right.
And so mine is over by then. So I pop over there. I mean, you never get enough of sports show, especially with all the stuff going on. So I have my own. So I invite you guys to come over every Wednesday at 6:00 Eastern. I'm there. But this Monday, I'm gonna be on Black Man Unfiltered Network, and we're gonna be talking reparations. And I'm not an expert, but I have a specific way that I think we should push for reparations that is a lot simpler than somebody getting a lump sum check. So I think that's going to be interesting because I actually read a couple of reparation reports from California.
Right.
And, so I will talk about it then. But that's a Black Man Unfiltered Monday at 6:00 Eastern. So come over there and check that out. Then see my sports show on Wednesday if y'all free. It's 6:00 Eastern. So on my channel. And I have a lot of videos on my channel. I mean, I have enough stuff on there. So it's Marriage, Politics, and Sports. I'm gonna end it here. I have a series called Let the Women Tell It. And all the stuff that's out there, I set it up to where there's a woman saying this is the correct way to act. And I said, they each have their own theme, but I said, let the women tell it. I don't need to tell you. Listen to what the women say about that. So I got like episode 27 coming. I'm probably going to put it out tomorrow. And so I think that's good. I talk about politics, of course. And of course, I talk about sports. So it's all over the place. People say, yeah, your channel should be more specific, but I have fun. I didn't even know I was going to even do this much. So something to do in retirement, because I like to write. But just putting it on virtual wax is pretty cool. So let me land it there.
Right. Black Man Unfiltered said that show is loaded and ready to go, Arpain. Arpain, thank you, man, for coming out and
I
sharing
appreciate
with us,
it, man. Thanks for having me up, man. I appreciate it.
Mr. Bennett, tell the people how they can reach you, man, and where they can find you.
Well, obviously these days, the best place to reach me is within the BMU network space. As everybody knows, I am the president of the bold, the beautiful, the beneficent, the benevolent Ball Brothers of the BMU network. That's right. So I exist in those spaces. So you'll find me on the Tuesday night Talk That Tuesday show. Co-host with our brother Trey Ferg, who's been in the chat tonight, on the Sports Talk, where we take on those Texas boys, and I'm sure they're going to be riveted that the Cowboys won the division. But we're gonna throw some salt on that, dash some salt on that the next time we hook up. I'm also part of the Friday night barbershop talk usually, and what's coming up on the 14th, January 14th at 9:30, I'll actually be hosting a new show, co-hosting the show with our man Grooming and Reviews, talking about the gray area, where we're going to be looking at a lot of society and social issues from a different cultural perspectives. I mean, him being Greek, me being ADOS African American, and so we are certainly very excited about what the show will bring. It'll be an honest dialogue, looking for how people are different, but at the same time how people are the same, and some of the struggles that people deal with, being immigrants, being from different backgrounds, and how they approach some of the issues that we're talking about tonight, like even marriage. How do different cultures look at and view marriage. And so so it's going to be a series of shows that we're going to have dealing with these different cultural topics. So certainly looking forward to it. And again, thank you to Black Men Unfiltered for giving us the opportunity. And then really, this was Grumman's idea. He decided to pull me in, and so I'll be sharing the stage with him, and fleshing this out. But I just have fun in these spaces. I love being a part that people would think that my opinion or my views would be welcomed in this space. And I just try to be as honest and transparent as I can on what my experiences have been, and people can learn from that. I'm all the more happy for that. So again, but thank you for Lost in Translation. Thank you for reaching out to me earlier. It was an honor to be on your program. I just salute you for not only for your class, but for the way how you conduct, especially when things can get sideways, and you just have a way of how to calm a situation, how to bring in when men and women get out of order. And you just have a way, without being demonstrative, without being angry, you just have a way of pulling everybody into balance. And so your leadership is something that I admire greatly, and what you bring to these spaces. So you're an asset to any panel platform that I've seen you on. And again, it's an honor to be here with you tonight.
Thank you, sir. As always, I want to thank you for coming out and sharing your wisdom. As always, I appreciate your perspective and also your wisdom as well, and your scholarship. And I want to thank you for coming out tonight, because you could have been doing anything as you wanted to, but I'm glad that you came, because what you brought to the table was very needed. And I do appreciate it. And last but not least, Mr. Vaughn. Mr. Vaughn, we've been trying to get you on here for the longest, sir. And I'm so glad that we had an opportunity to have you on the show as well. And I want to appreciate you for coming on tonight. Go ahead and tell the people how they can find you, sir.
Well, I don't officially have a channel, but you can catch me over there at Let's Talk the Better Black Life over there with Brother Clarence. I'm over there on Sundays the majority of the time, so you may catch me over there every now and then. And definitely, I would like to say, Lost in Translation, I would have to agree with everything Mr. Bennett said. You're an excellent moderator. And man, the way that you can step in calmly and diffuse confusion. You see what I'm saying? That is a very great skill set, sir. And I oftentimes appreciate you operating in it. But so again, it's an honor to be up here with all of you gentlemen. God bless you. Happy New Year. And thank you for having me again.
Thank you so much, Mr. Brian. As always, it's a pleasure. We appreciate your wisdom and your scholarship. And thank you for, make sure you fellas, y'all tell your wives, thank you for letting us borrow you this evening, because I don't want to keep you guys up too late. But I really do appreciate you guys. Okay.
It kept me out of her hair. So
Indeed.
She was glad about that.
Indeed. You know what, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you guys for coming out, because you could have been anywhere at any time, but you decided to stop by and talk to us this evening. You know what? Life is one of those things that it's difficult when you're alone. And tonight, what we had to do is we had to have a little conversation with the fellas on why it's important to have and to be a woman's shield. You know what I mean? what's it take to be a husband? Tonight, our Payne talked about, making sure that, he takes care of his wife from time to time. Mr. Bennett talked about making sure that you keep your body up and to make sure that you have respect. And Mr. Bryant talked about making sure that everybody is on the same level playing field and they have respect for one another. And I think that's one of the things that we need to get back to. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you guys for coming out. If you guys want, you can go ahead and make sure you hit the like button, hit subscribe if you're new to the channel. Also, tell a little sniglet that got up on here. We appreciate you for coming, even though you tried to bomb us and tear up our show, but that's all right. I'm just glad you came by. So listen, I hope you change your mind and use your powers for good instead of evil.
That's right.
You know what?
Yes,
I want to
sir.
thank everybody watching at home. I wanted to go back and cut that out, y'all. This is too good not to be to leave up. But if you guys want to catch me, we're here. We're going to start back on Sundays, every Sunday at 8:30. You never know what we might want to catch up with. This has been a part of our new series called Make Love Great Again. We're going to be discussing the roles of man and woman and also how they interact with each other in a relationship. Also, you can find me on Mondays on Humble Dad's channel as well at 9 p.m. You can also find me on Tuesdays on Talk That Talk Tuesday on Black Man Unfiltered's channel. And you can always find us here at the barbershop on Friday nights. So I'm so glad you guys came out. I want to thank Sir Hell Speaks once again for allowing us to continue his platform while he's out in the world being fruitful and multiplying. And I want to make sure I thank everybody down in the chat and those who watching at home. I want to appreciate y'all, and I'm going to thank you for coming out, gentlemen. It's been a pleasure. Folks at home in the chat, it's been a pleasure. And everybody on the replay, when we get this thing cleaned up, I appreciate you for watching it. And thank you so much for coming out. And you guys, God bless you and have a good day. Appreciate it. And we're out.
Take care, guys. Good night.
Take care.